Thus, the most repeated phrase by God in the Scriptures is, do not be afraid. But there's a real fear in freedom. I'm going to tell a story about slavery, and I'll finish with this. It's a story about slavery, real slavery in this country. And it was told to me by one of the African American seminarians that I went to school with. So he's black, studying for the priesthood. I've told this story before, but I think it's so beautiful. His ancestors were slaves in the South. That's his history. And he told this story in the seminary. He said, when the Emancipation Proclamation was enacted and slavery came to an end, the slave owners in the South had to let their slaves go free. So they unshackled them, unlocked the gates, and said, we don't like this, but you're free to go. And so the slaves who were now free gathered up their few belongings and their families, and they began to walk down those long dirt roads in those plantations. Remember those? You see in the movies, lined by the tree. And they began to walk that long journey down that dirt road. He said the families would be walking along that road, and they'd look out in front of them, and they would say things like this: I don't know what's out there. What do we do? And then they began to say things like, I was born on this plantation. My parents were born on this plantation. My grandparents and great-grandparents, this is all we know, is this plantation. And as they looked ahead into freedom, they were filled with fear. And so my classmates said, many of them stopped, turned around, and by their own choice walked back to the plantation and walked back into slavery freely. Amazing, isn't it? St. Paul says, for freedom Christ has set us free. So stand firm and do not again submit to the yoke of slavery. Freedom is right out there for you and for me. Am I willing to let Jesus into my life? Am I willing to lay down my life before the Lord? Am I willing to let somebody else in there into that dark place in my life? But I don't know what I'm going to find. That's scary. I don't know what's ahead of me. And so many of us turn around and walk right back into slavery because that's what we know. People walk right back into addictive behaviors. We walk right back into the same self-defeating mentalities because that's all we know. And freedom is held right before us. So brothers and sisters, choose freedom. Live in the truth. Let the Spirit of God work in your life. Give yourselves to Jesus. He wants to set you free. Yes, it's scary. Yes, there's some unknown. We walk by faith. Or we can live in slavery.